This is The Fight of Faith, and this is going to be a reaction video to what I watched on JRE episode 1393. And basically, it was a huge debate about this movie called Game Changer. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard of this, and it's actually, some people would say propaganda, or to say the least, it's a huge catalyst to inspiring a lot of people to go on a vegan diet. So I think this is a very important thing to discuss, especially with combat sports, especially with James Wilks, who is a producer of the film. And previously, Joe Rogan had a scientist or something. I forget exactly what he is. He's very specific in what he is, but I just want to let you guys know this whole video, I'm giving you guys a 20-minute summary of a 4-hour long debate. Okay, so I'm doing you a favor because this thing goes so into detail. It goes so into semantics. Like, they both don't like how the claims are made and how things are worded, basically. And so I don't know which episode it was, but Joe Rogan had Kresser on the podcast, pretty much debunking Game Changers. And so, obviously, being a producer of the film, James Wilks really took approach to come back with a lot of answers and a lot of defensive claims towards all his supposed false claims. So that's the premise of it all. So I got to admit, it's a really good debate to watch. If you have 4 hours to kill, I'm a truck driver, so of course I got the time. But the normal everyday person would not take the time to listen to this. But if you do, I promise that it's going to really inspire you. It inspired me because I like James Wilks as a person, and he's very intelligent, very articulate, and I like how humble he is in this whole approach. Now, he is frustrated. You can tell that he gets emotional in times of the debate, but I mean, I don't blame him. He put thousands and thousands of hours of research into producing this film, and he is completely non-biased. Now, I know it may be hard to admit, being a meat eater myself, but you can't deny the fact that he's in phenomenal shape. You can't deny the fact that he's a great combatives trainer, former UFC fighter. He won the Ultimate Fighter in U.S. versus Great Britain, or U.S. versus U.K. So now that he's a retired fighter, he wanted the most optimal diet for his fighters. And so if it was red meat, he was willing to do it. If it was veganism, he's willing to do it. This is a guy who put approximately 3,000 hours of research and study into looking in what would be the most optimum diet for his fighters and as a trainer, right? So I respect that because he's not actually downing meat. A matter of fact, there was a point in the debate where he told Joe Rogan himself is like that. Matter of fact, if you are gonna eat meat, I suggest that you eat the meat that you're already eating, because Joe Rogan eats fresh, how do you say, wild elk, free grazing, eating grass its whole life, super healthy. Because majority of one of the issues that was brought up is B12 supplementation. Okay, so one of the points that was brought up in Game Changer is that regardless if you're a meat eater or a vegan or vegetarian, whatever the case may be, we all need to supplement B12, because where that comes from apparently is rivers, streams, and actual dirt. Okay, apparently. So the only way to acquire that is to take a supplement, no matter what your diet is. If you live somewhere where there's not a lot of sun, you need to supplement vitamin D. So he's establishing all these grounds. And by the way, how James started the debate with, he's very intelligent in his approach. He's pretty much establishing everything that Chris Kresser said wrong on his supposed debunk. Okay, so me being a meat eater, I came in with an open mind and willing to hear this guy out. I mean, he's very, the guy has over 100 slides. He's telling Jamie, slide 98, slide 55, can we show this article, blah, blah, blah. It's very intense. But it was very one-sided. Like, as a summary, it was very one-sided that he pretty much won the debate. But I like his approach in saying, he's not actually saying veganism is the way to go. He's not saying that. He believes, in his opinion, that is the most optimal diet as a whole plant-based diet. But he does admit, like I said to Joe Rogan, that a healthy diet contains a lot of vegetables and fruits anyway, right? Whether if you're having meat or not. But the nutrients that you get in wild red meat is twice the amount of protein and nutrients that you would get in regular grain-fed meat. Because back to the point about B12, supposedly the number one grain distributor for feed in the world admits that they have to add vitamin B12 to their grain feed. Now, keep in mind, grain and corn and all these things is actually just fillers to get these animals fat and big, so we have a lot of meat to eat. But it's not that the most healthy. The best meat you can eat, red meat, if anything, is grass-fed beef, and it's very lean. And James Wilks admits that. So I honor that and I respect that. So but one thing that he did lose, the only thing he lost in the debate, was the claim that red meat causes cancer. Okay, so in the film Game Changer, supposedly they allude to the fact. They don't directly say it. Now this is why they're both arguing about semantics of how they are wording their claims, because they think they are disingenuous in their claims. But even though they don't come out and say it, everyone that walks out of watching Game Changer, I never watched it. I rather watched the Joe Rogan review, honestly, of this debate. But apparently red meat causes cancer. Now, that was a claim, whether if it was direct or indirectly claimed, that was a claim. And so what I liked that Kresser did, and this is probably the only good thing he did in this whole podcast, because James Wilks brought it to him hard, like telling him that you're wrong here, you were wrong here, you said I have my facts wrong, and I'm proving to you that my facts are right. He went in on him. But I gotta admit that Kresser said that there was a study of over 150 studies. So it's not, I mean, like an article, my apologies, an article that showed over 150 separate studies to show if there's any affiliation with red meat and prostate cancer, because apparently that is apparently the biggest cancer that red meat causes is prostate cancer. So they did the research. Now, 150 different studies is not just one. This is the data from over 150 different studies showing that 70% of eating red meat, the results showed no affiliation to having prostate cancer. Completely false, right? And the other 16%, I believe, showed that there might be an increase of risk of cancer. And the other 14%, remaining 14%, showed that there was a decrease in risk of prostate cancer. So that's kind of a flip of a coin. But majority, the most important thing, 70% shows, and out of all these studies, show that actually red meat does not cause cancer. So that was the only strong point that Kresser did, and that was very important. So because James Wilks actually doesn't even claim that Game Changer is a vegan film. He's just claiming that he's putting out the most accurate data that he can find and the most transparent and non-biased data. And I just think he's a great advocate for plant-based diets, because even the omnivorous guy, Kresser, admits that most of his diet is plant-based foods. And because majority of the plate of a healthy plate, if you want to look at a healthy meal, it's going to be fruits or vegetables, and a side of meat, a little, but majority of it, probably 70% of the plates should be vegetables or grains or whatever, right? So they argued about, they went extensively about all these things, but like I said, this is a review about protein. There's a assumption that if someone is on a vegan diet or a vegetable-based diet, whatever, that they're not getting enough protein. Well, James Wilks pretty much debunks that as well, pretty much going into detail of how much a human being needs per kilogram of weight, with how many grams of protein they need, with lactase, or all these long words, amino acid profiles, right? But at the end of the day, the claim was that there is just as much, if not more, protein than a 3-ounce steak in a peanut butter sandwich. But I was thinking, who eats 3 ounces of steak? Come on, like, that's not enough. But at the end of the day, you got to admit, lentils, you know, peanut butter, bread itself, grains, they all have protein. So it's just the people that are trying to bulk up and people that are trying to build muscle mass, and those are the people that supplement protein powder anyway, right? Not a lot of people try to get all their protein just from food alone, especially athletes. So that's the thing to consider. Athletes, whether you're eating meat or a vegan diet, you are going to be on supplements. You're going to supplement vitamins. You're going to use BCAAs, amino acids. You're going to be using protein, you know, all these things. So it's up for discrepancy of the person, where they live, etc. So there's a lot of variables. But one thing about that James Wilks was kind of dishonest about, I'll say to say the least, is that in Game Changer, he made a correlation with meat propaganda being marketed and pushed through major corporations, just like cigarettes were. Now, if you remember in cigarettes, like we would always look in advertising classes or, you know, history classes, they would show cigarette ads with celebrities to make it look cool. And even though the research wasn't even really there showing it was unhealthy for you, it was just the image of looking so cool. And people back in the day, in the 40s or 50s or whatever, it got big. It was the cool thing to do. You know, you were smoking, you know, like all the time. And so he didn't make a claim in the movie, but it alludes to the fact that cigarettes cause cancer, and so does red meat. And they're both marketed the same way. You know what I'm saying? So he doesn't make that claim, but that's disingenuous of him. And red meat is proven by the research and the study that Kresser showed. Over 150 studies show 70% of them that there's no correlation to cancer at all. Nothing, you know, with red meat. So that's debunked. But the interesting thing, me as a meat eater and me not being a vegan, I must admit that there's a problem. And Joe Rogan said this pretty interestingly, that he said 2 out of 3 people are lactose intolerant. Naturally. So all over the world, there's people who cannot eat or drink milk. 2 out of 3 people. That's a lot. That's almost everybody. So if it's so healthy for us, the argument is, then why does everyone get sick? Or why does it bother our stomachs? Like, should we be drinking this? You know, people call it, you know, pus. You know, why would you drink milk pus? You know, like, I mean, cow pus, you know, like it's, if you think about it that way, you never want to drink milk again. But there's vitamins there. I mean, like, I grew up having a bowl of cereal with milk every day, and I don't have cancer. I'm not lactose intolerant. I don't know. So but that was an interesting fact that, that is like, wow. Like, so it really makes you think, right? Let's just say, in summary, in closing, it was a really good debate, and I'm a truck driver, so I definitely had the 4 hours to check it out. Hats off to James Wilks, who really brought it. He pretty much won the debate. Kresser had his moments, but James, keep in mind, he was on a mission. He's defending this movie that he spent 3,000 hours researching to make, right? And so he came in, he was a man on a mission. He came in guns blazing, right? He even established that. So are you a nutrition expert? No? Okay. So he used that against Chris Kresser the whole debate. Like, well, you claim that you're not a nutrition expert. I'm just a combatives trainer. So we need the real experts to come and defend this data that we're talking about. So there's talks of another podcast. Hopefully it's not 4 hours long. But hats off to Joe Rogan. Hats off to James Wilks. Hats off to Chris Kresser for having this conversation, because I am inspired. I am training at Extreme Couture Las Vegas with Drew Davis, Mr. Prevail, who is a vegan fighter and stronger than anyone I know. So, I mean, I can't talk too much smack about vegans, right? And hats off. You know, if it's for you, if it's healthy for you, do it, man. Like, I mean, I don't have to eat meat all the time. I like salmon. I like red meat, you know, chicken every once in a while, you know, but yeah. So at the end of the day, we all need to eat more vegetables, because that, especially raw and organic, because that's where the nutrients lie. The meat that you're eating, the only nutrients you get is from the vegetables that the animal ate, period. That's the summary of this all. And there's no guilt trip. You're not going to go to heaven if you're not vegan. You're not going to go to hell if you are vegan. It's just preference. We all trying to live longer, trying to be better individuals and live optimized lives and have optimized diets and be better. So hopefully that is a good discussion. Comment and share this video and see what you guys think. Are you guys vegan or pescatarian or omnivorous diets? Like, what do you guys do? And what have you learned from Game Changer? But if you've seen Game Changer, please watch that debate, or at least listen to some of the points that they make. It's very informative, a lot of information. But I definitely liked the debate, and I liked how Joe Rogan moderated this thing. Hopefully he can moderate a presidential debate someday. I signed the petition for that, so that'd be cool to see. Yeah, thank you everybody for listening. And hopefully this was informational for you guys, to inspire you guys to eat better, eat healthier, live longer. All right. Love y'all. And keep fighting the good fight of faith. Take care.